Hi everyone, welcome to this day trade recap. And today I'm going to go over how I draw levels again. I want to kind of reinforce that, and then we'll talk about entries again as well. This morning we had a couple of pre-market runners. The first one was PEGY, and I am on a daily chart right now so that I can show you the levels that I was looking at. When I saw this thing, it was very close to these lines that I have drawn here. And how did I get these two lines on here on this daily chart? This is a gap fill. So it had come from this price. See, it had sold down and it had come from this price and it started to pop. So I'm looking to the left to find out, well, where's it trying to get to? It's trying to get to this choppy area. And so I just sort of, if I zoom in, you can see how I draw the lines. I look for touches, top and bottoms, right? To confirm on both ends, both at the top and the bottom. But anyway, this was the bottom and this was the top. If you go to the 1 minute chart and you look at what time was that? 6:29 when I told you. 6:29 this morning, my time was right here. It had already reached here, right? So I was very close to this line. And I'm not going to get in there. There's no reason to get in there. You're buying a top and the risk is too great with almost no reward. So what I do is I just wait for a pullback, and I got this red line here. So I'm going to mark that because that's going to be a potential target as well. But I wait for a pullback. And what typically, opening bell, you're going to have those people who will buy into that and trying to take it back to this level or whatever they're looking for. They saw probably that gap fill as well. You see this pink line and this yellow line that kind of run together. They're both solid. A lot of times price will come down to there, and if one of the two lines catches it like a fishing net, catches price, it holds it, then usually that's a really good sign for a push up. Okay, if you get a buy signal. And see, as I zoom in, here's the pink line, and price found that pink line. It was a little bit weak and sketchy there, but it did find it, and it found it here. It got above the yellow. You can technically use those lines as your stop loss. But yeah, it was below view out, but it was strong enough to take it to, here was this red line. Remember that red line from back here? I will mark those. I like to color them red, but I was in a hurry. I didn't color it red. But it did hit my 480 level, and that was it. But it was weak. Can I just tell you, it was really quite weak. So if you were just using this first level that I drew based on that previous red line, then you could have got out there multiple times, right? So it was just not ideal, but it did do something. So getting in around $3.79, and the target is $4.64, which was this line over here, and it did hit the 480. So you could have made $1 a share on that little move. The next one we looked at was KZIA, pre-market runner. It at, let's see what time was opening, 6:36. So the time frame, it had made this high and it was selling down. So I quickly went to my daily chart and I put some lines on there. Sometimes it's hard to see and you want to verify. So you can go to a 4-hour chart, and it might, or a 1-hour chart, whichever. And a 1-hour chart shows this gap down, right? And so this thing was looking for a gap fill to this general level, right? And you had this down wick here. That's how I got my first level. You see where that wick, I was a little bit off. I should have gone to like 314, but I wanted to be conservative. So I said 310 was the number I picked. And if you look at what it actually did, when it finally made the move, it went up to 325. So, and I had that level marked as well, and that's where the high wick went. But the chances of you getting out when this high wick does that is pretty slim. But see this 310, how many times it tagged it? 1, 2, 3. You could have got out at that 310. That's why I'll be a little more conservative with my levels. And then it just never looked back. It faded after that for the rest of the day. So, but Peggy, P-E-G-Y, this one might be a candidate for continuation, because it's right here, and we do have some more gap. Do you see this right over here above? This is that 493 line. It didn't quite reach 493, but it could. You can see some higher lows are starting to be made. So I don't know. I really don't know for sure what this thing will do, but there is more gap, right? There's more room up here in this area to fill this next level. So if it has a catalyst or something coming, because today it ran and it really didn't have any news, it could have been option activity, I don't know. But if it gets some news, it'll fill this gap between, $5 and $7 or $5 and $8. And so that might be a fun thing to just keep in mind. Peggy might revisit the charts again, the scanners. Okay, CTS was another stock we looked at. I'm still on my 4-hour chart. This one, I had this $11.19 level, and you can kind of see why. 4-hour chart, we have this general choppy level right here. And the bottom of that is $9.64, and it's not real certain there. How about down here, $8.92, down here, $8.07. So it's kind of between 807 and almost 10, where it's going to be really choppy. But anyway, this thing has some more room to the upside to try to test to get to this level, the bottom of that chop. So we've got some chop. We've got this level over here, which is where it came to today, you know, that 830 range. And I don't even think there was news on this thing either. So it's just that traders are looking for these little gap opportunities. And so that's what that was all about. ILAG. Let's put ILAG on here. This one's hard to read because it's a recent IPO. We had it popped up to $26.40, and it has sold all the way down to like $1 or whatever. It's pretty bad. But it's trying to make a little slight recovery. I'm on a 4-hour chart here. So I was just going through those same levels that I have called out, and I did post these levels, but the way I'm getting them, and if I go on a 1-hour chart, it might be a little easier to see. We had this previous day here, which that's kind of where I was getting these levels. And down here I had these levels, this tail. Then we were going to have these high wicks. So it's probably going to try to possibly test that. It's just right at this 200 EMA. And that's creating some resistance. Do you see that? So anyway, this is how I've been drawing my lines. I look for where tails touch multiple times, ideally on a 1 hour or whatever time frame. Like here's a top. This was key for me. A top and a tail, a couple of tails. So that's how I got that general couple of levels in there. And it continued to push through those levels, and it went up to this next level. And I'm trying to be a little conservative on this one because I feel like it's a riskier stock. Okay, so let's see how it played out on the minute chart. We were like, oh, look, it's hitting some levels. It's about to hit my next target. It's right at my next target. We're after closing bell right now, though. So it's doing what I expected it to do. See, it actually just took this level out, 389, and then the next one is 395. So it's coming through, and then we'll have 4. But look at it go. After hours, it's just cooking. Okay, it's going to go to this. So ideally, if I were in this trade, I would be staying with it because it's showing strength. It is 419 is the real price, 423. Oh, there it goes. So I'm going to X these out because it took those. It hit those. Oh, we need to see a pullback. The next level is 550, and I don't know if it's going to hit that on this run. I would expect a pullback somewhere around here. It needs to deal with this level. Anyway, that's ILAG, and then SIGA. We'll come back to this and look at this in just a minute. But let's look at SIGA, how I drew my lines on SIGA. SIGA's hard. Can I just tell you, it is hard because it's above all resistance, right? It's hard to draw lines when they're above all previous resistance. So I kind of have to use Fibonacci for that. That's these green and yellow lines that I taught you how to use. And you just look for a swing high to a previous swing low. But let me take it down to a 4-hour chart. And we had these previous levels. So there was this red line, and then this red line. I should mark that. I'm going to mark that so you can see that's a red line right here on a 4-hour chart from a previous day. Just color it red so you kind of know what that represents. And then this is a high wick. So 2422 will probably be where it wants to go next, right? It's this red line here. So, you know, we'll keep it on watch. And above that, I have another target at 2542, which I did mention. It's dealing with this 2330 line. Do you see how it's handling that? Total resistance. It's at least trying to hold it now. Do you see how it's trying hard to hold this white line, that 2330? That 2330 really meant something to this stock today. So we'll see how if it can hold it as support, maybe it'll go to here and then to here. That's SIGA. It's a little harder to trade. It's a monkeypox and it has big range. CVNA, which is Carvana. They came out and said basically they make $4,000 per sale on each and every one. That's their average, which is pretty good. That's why this thing got a little momentum today, like $12 a share, which beautiful little move on it. And it hit my line right there, which was 46.30. I was being very conservative with that. I mean, I could have put it a little higher based on the daily chart. Let's go look at that. This is how I drew this line right here. had a top right here, and it kept hitting a bunch of others. So I found this high wick, a couple of them, and then just shot through the others. That's a good level, and that's how I picked that level on Carvana. And it looks like it's going to, here's what I'm looking at now. This is the 46. And you see you have this big gap to the 69. And the reason I put that 69 there, because there's actually a bigger gap than that, but I wasn't feeling very confident about that. So I found a low wick. I mean, there's a bunch of low wicks. Maybe this will be more of a reasonable level, 54. Maybe I should tag that. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to tag 54 because there's basically 2 wicks and a top that hit that. So we'll put that in there. And we'll see how it treats it in the coming weeks. Okay, it's right there. Needs to make this, it's trying to make that support right now. So it's a swing, it's a higher float. We'll just see how it treats this level. And if you can't really read it on a lower time frame, just bring up the time frame to like a 15-minute. And is it holding that level? Whoops. Yeah, it's starting to hold that level. Still not ready yet, I don't think. Ideally, I like them to be above all the lines, and here it's not really above this green line, but it's holding this white line. Maybe we'll just wait for these 2 lines to catch up to it, and that would give it enough momentum. But we'll just wait and see how things set up. Maybe that's Carvana, and I think that's all I wanted to talk about. So let me once more go back to PGEY, and we'll just talk about the entry because you know how I draw my targets now. You're going to want to review this video a few times. Again, one way of looking at entries is when the price comes down to these 2 parallel lines, the pink one and the yellow solid. Price comes down here, and this was a tricky one. Actually, I felt pretty awkward about it, but down here it confirmed that it was setting up. So if you're not sure, you can always wait for this thing down here to set up when you've got a blue bar above the 0 line, which actually occurred here, or when the dot crosses the green line, when it crosses underneath it. So either one of these 2 candles, that would have been the entry, and it'll go to your target. Okay, so that's one way of looking at entry. That was Peggy. And then we said KZIA. This one I didn't chase, right? I saw it coming down here, so it almost came down to these 2 lines. Instead, it came more like to the 50. That's this blue dashed, and that's a pretty good area. And here we had this confirming that, yeah, it's going to go to the target here. So this is the entry. And then we had another signal here. But when you get this red dot and you've got a nice buying candle and you're above and these are all pointing up, yeah, you're going to go to your target. So getting in around $2 or $2.20 and taking it to $3.10, that's not bad. 90 cents a share on a very cheap stock. And there was, the volume was pretty good considering it was pre-market. CPS was not my favorite. I'm going to tell you that right now. But we're looking at entries now. I talked about targets. Now we're looking at entries. This one, I could see it had pretty much exhausted itself. The thing I'm interested in here, it could easily go to this 11, right? It's holding. Let's see how it's holding these levels. This is a major all-day bull flag right here. And so I can see feasibly that this thing, if it continues to hold above this white line and then sets up, this is a 15 or 30-minute chart, it could go to this 11.19. It hit a 10 already, but let's let it set up. It may need to catch up with these. I don't know. We'll just let it set up. I'm not going to try to predict right now. We're on a pullback, so on the 30-minute chart. But on the 1-minute chart, it's holding levels pretty well. It needs to hold this. It really needs to hold that white line that I drew here at around $8 or something, but it's holding things pretty well. So that is CPS. It just had low volume, so I kind of took my eyes off of it. Did the volume come back in later? No. Volume really never did return to this stock. And so I guess that's all. We already talked about ILAG. Did we talk about ILAG's entries? ILAG entries, the same thing. Now, if you look, see how it comes down to the 50 or these 2 parallel lines. If you want a good entry, wait till price comes down to the 50 or the 2 parallel lines and sets up. This will be good, like right here. Look where it is. These are still pointing up. I'm going to refer to them as the parallel lines, the yellow and the pink. They're still pointing up. This thing's saying get in. You've got these lines you have to deal with. It dealt with one of them, so it's probably going to have to prove this next top one as support, and it did. So it went to the next one. And here we had a buy signal. Everything looked good. on this. So it went up to the next line, which was an entry at 314 to 372. Very nice, like 50 cents or whatever it was almost. So that was a nice little run. And then it settled right at that two parallel lines again, right here. It settled actually at the 200 EMA, that yellow dash. But you could have got in anywhere in here if you wanted to wait till it was confidently above the VWAP or this white line. Right, look at how that white line was. Right here, you could have gone in at 323 and taking it to 370 line. So another 50 cents or so. And then here it came back down to the yellow. Here's these two parallel lines, the yellow and the pink, came down there, got a buy signal. And so if you had gotten in on that, $3.54, it went all the way up to $4.34. So that's another way of looking for buy signals. These blue arrows, if this all agrees, like the dot and the blue bar, the dot is below the green, the red dot's below the green line, and the blue bar is above this mid zero, and you get a signal up here, and everything up here makes sense. I don't use this as my primary. This is a confirmation. Everything up here needs to make sense, but the best time to buy is when price is either at the 50 or one of these parallel lines, okay? And these parallel lines, ideally, price above, and these lines pointing up, or certainly not pointing down, okay? And then just take it to your target, and you should be good to go. The way I like to use these parallel lines is at my entry, I use them as a stop loss, okay? So if price happens to fall, turn around after I get in, which it doesn't very often do that. It's really rare for that to happen. That's why it makes a really good stop loss. But if it does happen, I cut my losses pretty early and I don't have a bad loss. It's just a minor loss. And then I can trade again later when it sets up correctly. But anyway, that's it for today. And I just, I'm going to continue to focus on targets. I will provide those to you. And, you really need to practice making sure you know your entry. Okay. Don't worry so much right now about targets. Entries are, whatever makes sense on the chart. Where is price coming down to? What major support? Well, this yellow line in this case, if it crashes below your 50, it's going to go probably to the next one down, which is this yellow dash to the 200. And then it's going to have to use each of those lines as stairs to step its way up. You see that? So here it used the VWAP, and then it used the 50, and then it just kind of started to use these previous levels, these white lines. And so that's why they work as targets. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know, and we will talk soon.